Greetings, everyone. DFG. Hey, guys. I just wanted to take a few minutes and share my comments around the recent White House visit of Kanye West. I've been a little slow to respond, and my reasoning for being slow to respond is really to take it in, to do my own self-reflection on it, to get beyond my emotions, about it and to be able to express a thought uh, from the highest level of understanding. And what is the highest level of understanding? Is being able to think critically and independently. Using all of the information, all the resources that are available to you, all of the your cognitive, instincts that are available to you, and make sure you come across or you come to an intelligent conclusion, your conclusion, but an intelligent conclusion as well. And here's my thoughts around Kanye West. I'm going to give you two different. I'm going to give you a little context around what I'm about to say. If you remember a while back, Kanye made a comment about, if black people wanted to be free, uh, they could have been freed a long time ago. In essence, it was interpreted, and by his own words, probably a little bit misguided in a sense that I think he could have did a better job of articulating what he meant when he said that slavery was a choice. But in reflection, I mean, initially when I heard it, I'm like, what is he talking about, slavery being a choice? Who would choose to be a slave? But in reflection, giving myself an opportunity to really, take some time to think about what he was saying, break down what he's saying, and looking at it in its truest, purest, content, then I began to understand he was talking about, a mindset. He wasn't talking about the actual, physical slavery in and of itself. He was simply saying that, if you free your mind, then everything else, will follow, and that blacks, or so-called blacks, had a slave mentality. In other words, someone else has to take care of me, somebody has to watch over me, somebody has to give me, what I need, versus a free mentality of saying, no one has to give me what I need. I'm going to go out and get it, even if that means I have to go out and fight for it. And in essence, take it through struggle, constructive struggle, but at the same time, through struggle, all the same. And sometimes constructive struggle means even, war, taking it, what's rightfully yours by force if your oppressor is not willing to give it by right. So I understood in context, sorry, guys, in context, what he was trying to say. Just like this latest situation. Me and the men of Gideon Flight, we had a conversation about it. And initially, myself included, we all kind of walked away saying, man, what is Kanye talking about? It didn't seem, it seemed all over the place, discombobulated, for lack of a better word. And, and in thinking about it before I decided to do this video, I've been thinking about it for, well over a week. And then watched the video again today. But this time watched it without my emotions and listened critically. In other words, I decided to block out all of the white noise around, Kanye West at the White House with the enemy, Donald Trump. He's not my enemy, but I realize there are many people in the hearing of my voice consider Donald Trump, as their enemy. And I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say it again. Donald Trump got almost 64 million votes, guys. Almost 64 million of your fellow citizens voted for Donald Trump. And over 50% of white females voted for Donald Trump. So, unless you're giving all those 50, if you're giving every other white woman you see grief every time she opens her mouth, if you're criticizing, half of all the registered voters every time they open their mouth, then if you're not doing that to them, then then you need to go back and ask yourself, are you operating, at your highest level of integrity? Because again, much as you want to believe, or some people want to believe that Donald Trump just, came out of the Trump Towers and, went and kicked in the White House door and took a seat and said, "Now I'm president." I know some of you guys boil it down. Like they were saying, you want to cook that gravy down, to a low gravy. But the truth of the matter is, Donald Trump was selected slash elected president of the United States, and most of the people that you're looking at, especially if you're a part of white America, you know, those were the people who put him in office, along with obviously the Electoral College, and he whooped the socks off of Hillary with that. So the corporations put him in too. So you guys who love working on your jobs and feel like your job place is a great place to work, just remember your company could have been very well one of those, had a representative in terms of the Electoral College who had everything to do with putting Trump in. And at that time, I was working for a corporation as well. And I know the corporation I was working for absolutely wanted Donald Trump to be president of the United States. And I'll tell you, that was BJ's Wholesale Club. I mean, there's no question about it. The executive leadership at BJ's wanted Donald Trump in office for no other reason, because they were afraid of, taxes and some of the other things that was going to be levied against them, minimum wage things that were going to affect their bottom line had Hillary been elected, or selected. Now, that's just the fact. So a lot of you guys, walk around wearing your company brand on your chest and your name tags and boasting at your company picnics and parties, about, how proud you are to be there. Then just know it's a good chance, that your executives, the people who run your company, the CEO, the board of directors, the shareholders who run your company voted for Donald Trump as well. Not only did they vote for Donald Trump, they selected Donald Trump as well. Now, that's just the facts. You deal with that however you want to deal with it. Okay, let's get back to the story at hand, the reason for this video, and that is Kayne West visit. Here's what I heard in Kanye's comments. Now, what I'm doing is clearing out all the white noise. Oh, it's Kayne West. He's bipolar. He's crazy. Don Lemon said that, he was that his mother would be turning over in her grave, and that another person on his panel made the comment that he was just more or less a coon and, a minstrel show, more or less call him a nigger. But, that's, it's funny how black folk can call black folk niggers, but if a white person says that, all of a sudden everybody want to get all, pissy about it. That seems to me, that's hypocritical at best and dumb at worst. Stupid and dumb at worst. Just saying. One man's opinion. All right? But here's what I heard Kanye say, and I'm going to get through this in 1 minute. I heard him talk about community. I heard him talk about Chicago and the problem that Chicago was having in terms of education. I heard him talk about the problem they were having as far as crime. And I heard him talk about the problem they would have with industry, businesses, that they needed more businesses inside of Chicago that created jobs so that people would be able to find gainful employment, those who were willing to work. I heard him talk about stop and frisk. I heard him say that that's not a good idea and that he hoped that the president would revisit that policy. And I saw Trump acknowledge that he was open-minded to what Kanye said in regards to stop and frisk. I heard Kanye talk about freeing Larry Hoover. Larry Hoover used to be the head of the Gangster Disciples, very, very criminal organization back in the 60s, 70s, probably even into the 80s. But Larry Hoover turned his life around, became a positive, took that negative and made it a positive, and started doing very good things in Chicago. And that's when Larry Hoover got 6 life sentences once he started becoming an effective force inside of that community. And he talked about freeing that man who has been in prison. I don't know how many years he's been, but he's 68 years old right now. And so he was talking about freeing a Larry Hoover so Larry Hoover can continue his work in the inner cities of Chicago. He also talked about, education in terms of, mixing education with the arts. So in essence, doing math and basketball at the same time, doing music and time for reflection at the same time, mixing up a curriculum so that our children of color, indigenous Aboriginal children, so-called black children, would not be bored in school. I fully agree with that. The education system that's in the school system right now, the education curriculum that's in the school system right now does not interest most children of color. It just doesn't. It's a history that's whitewashed. It's a history that talks about, their oppressors, past and present, and they're just not interested in learning about that. So you have to come up with a curriculum and that's more suitable, for the constituents, in this case, the school children, especially in the public schools of Chicago. Kayne West spoke about that. Kayne West spoke about respecting the office of the president. Well, if you don't respect the office of the president, then just understand no matter who becomes the president, you don't have to respect the office anymore. And so it's not so much that Donald Trump is sitting in the Oval Office as much as it is the Oval Office. And he is the CEO of the United States of America. That's just a fact. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's an election coming up in 2020. If you have a better candidate, put him out there and then support that candidate. And, maybe, you'll have another person in there. But if you don't respect the office, then when that person gets in office, you can expect even more chaos. It may be even a lot worse than it is today. You never know. It's like a Cracker Jack box. You never know what you're going to get inside of it, right? So, but he talked about respecting the office. I respect that. And then he just talked about, being resilient. And when he talked about the racial walls and that racism, was an invisible wall. Well, racism is real. Racism is not an invisible wall in terms of its application. But if you talk in terms of whether or not you can put your hands on race, it's tangible. There is some truth to what he said in terms of it's not always easy to detect. I mean, you can walk in a room of people and they're smiling at you, and yet they hate you because of the color of your skin. And that could be white, black, so-called black, because one of my friends told me they prefer just to say white. But I say so-called black because we're not black people. We're Aboriginal people, at least most of us, Native Americans. But, again, so yes, there is redistricting and redlining and, all other kind of discrimination, but most of it is invisible. You don't see signs on the doors anymore or windows saying no colored allowed or no Irish allowed or no Italians allowed. You don't see those signs anymore. So it is an invisible wall. And invisible walls are a lot harder to enforce than visible walls because, well, let me be careful. I guess it's not harder to enforce. It's probably easier to enforce. I stand corrected on that statement because you can get away with it easily if it's an invisible wall. And he's just simply saying he didn't let it stop him, and nor shall we let it stop us. I get, in essence, what he's saying, but I don't agree that racism is non-existent and that racism is easily overcome. It is not. It's just not the facts. We live in a society where you have bigots and prejudiced people who will do everything in their power to keep you out of their communities, out of their neighborhoods, out of their, industry, and out of the money markets. That's just an absolute fact. There's no denying it. But he talked about resilience in terms of don't succumb to it, don't let it win. That I can respect. Now, those are the things that I heard Kanye say. I did hear him talk about, putting on the Make America Great cap and how that energized him. And when I first heard that, I thought that what is a very, very simplistic statement for an adult man to be making. That sounds very childlike. But then I listened to him again. And if you listen to him, he wasn't saying that the cap made him feel like a superhero. He was using that more of a metaphor that, the cap was somehow an empowering, event, for him. So, if that's what it takes to get him going, I mean, some of you guys might put on your best business suit when you're going to an important meeting, or some of you ladies might put on, that outfit that get all the hairs turned when you go into a meeting to make you feel good about yourself. It's no more different than him talking about, having a cap on that inspires him. Whether or not it's something that we agree or disagree with, it doesn't matter. It's not your cap. It's his cap. And he has every right to wear that cap if that cap does for him what your dress or your suit or your favorite shirt or sneakers do for you, my friend. Okay? So all that being said, as I bring this video to close, I say again, we have to think independently as a people. We have to think critically as a people. And time out for letting, people influence us, Democratic parties, Republican parties, what's populist, liberals versus, conservative. If you want to be respected as an individual, you have to show yourself worthy of demanding that respect. And nobody's going to respect you if you're just a sheeple, going along just to get along or going along because that's what you're supposed to do as a so-called man of color. Okay? That's my thoughts on Kanye. Thank you for listening. Agree, disagree, it's up to you. But at least you got I'd like to think, a very informed opinion. Appreciate it. Subscribe to the channel. We would really appreciate it. Like it if you don't, if you do. And if you don't, let me know too. Thank you, guys.